It's hard to believe what someone will do when money is tight. I find myself among those forced into extreme measures. My overwhelming need to secure urgent treatment for my daughter, Elena, has driven me to this place. Every day I worry about what unforeseen trouble might strike her or me next, knowing that everything is at risk. I had no alternative. I needed funds immediately. A bank would not extend a loan, and our insurer rejected the claim because the procedure fell outside our coverage. My daytime work barely paid more than the minimum, yet I was short by nearly $5,000. The only possibility was to pick up an extra shift in an unusual nighttime position until I could save enough for Elena's care. I had already lost her mother in a terrible accident a year ago, and I couldn't bear the thought of losing Elena too. I scoured every possible lead, searching high and low for a job that would pay the amount I desperately required, and that also offered a night shift. In our small town, chances were scarce and prospects looked grim. Then, in what seemed like a stroke of luck, I learned about a vacancy at a tiny grocery about a mile from home. The store was named Dusk's Bargain Mart, a peculiar shop that only opened after dusk and closed well before sunrise. Its offbeat hours puzzled me. Who would shop at a store that operated solely in the dark when larger 24-hour outlets existed? Still, I needed employment, and the odd schedule perfectly matched my availability. So, I decided to apply there. After completing my day job, I headed home, where my friend Kara had kindly offered to watch over Elena. Once I arrived at Dusk's Bargain Mart, I noted that the building looked worn, but still displayed faded promotional signs on its front. I also observed an unusual mark beneath the store's name, something that resembled foreign characters. I stepped through the door, surprised to find the interior far more spacious than the modest exterior had suggested. Long rows of shelves were filled with food, household items, and even a few racks of clothing. Most of the shoppers appeared ordinary, though several clearly preferred the quiet of late hours. I tried not to stare, but one customer glowered at me as if I'd intruded. The employees, too, looked unremarkable in a diverse yet subdued manner, and not much conversation could be heard at the registers. Intent on finding a supervisor's office to ask about work, I wandered toward the front. I felt a surge of hope when I noticed a sign that seemed to read, "Help Wanted," yet my optimism waned as I read the sign's full text. Help wanted, but not always necessary. Unsure how to interpret it, I resolved to find someone in charge. As I reached the back office and rapped on the door, a large man in a blue apron stepped forward. His badge identified him as the store manager, Leon. He greeted me with a reserved, "Hello, can I assist you?" His face, though kind, betrayed a hint of discomfort, as if maintaining a smile was painful. Ignoring that, I explained that I was looking to apply for a job. Leon glanced at the odd sign by the door, then reached into his pocket and produced a small radio. "Maggie," he said into it, "what's our staffing situation tonight?" There was a pause, and then his tone shifted as he added, "It appears we are a bit short. We might have an opening." I was stunned that he expected me to start immediately without a formal interview. "Yes, you can begin tonight. Right away," he said. When I inquired about wages and benefits, he explained matter-of-factly that new baggers earned $45 per hour, with comprehensive health and dental plans, though not including life insurance. I nearly couldn't believe the rate, yet I had no room to be choosy given my dire circumstances. Desperate to amass the money for Elena's treatment, I agreed immediately. Leon then instructed me to retrieve a store apron from the back and begin what he called basic bagger training. Soon, an older man, moving with a limp and holding an apron, emerged from the rear. He introduced himself as Gale, the trainer. though he offered no warmth in his tone. "You're here to bag items, aren't you?" he asked brusquely. I nodded, explaining that while I had never worked in a grocery before, I was confident I could learn. Gale grunted dismissively. "Not like we do it here," he replied. "Follow me, and I'll show you our way." Before I could ask further questions, Gale's radio crackled with a garbled message. "Alert Dusk. Repeat alert Dusk." His expression darkened, and he mumbled something about being cautious with customers. In a matter-of-fact tone, he then said, "Good news. You're on board. Let's begin right now." I felt both relief and a strange disquiet, yet I consented. Gale led me into a small, dim room where a stern woman awaited. Her name tag read Fiona, the assistant manager, and she introduced herself by saying, "I'll handle your orientation." Inside a sparse office with plain walls, Fiona handed me a sheaf of documents. One of them was a non-disclosure agreement, a requirement before starting work. Though I found it odd that only this form was needed, I signed it quickly, eager to begin. Fiona then scanned the papers and said, "All set. Now let me explain a few simple rules." She stressed that when bagging groceries, I must first ask each customer which type of bag they preferred, and then pack their items accordingly. "Do not pry into why they are buying what they buy," she instructed firmly. "If a customer needs help loading their vehicle, do not follow them outside. And if you ever feel unsafe, press the yellow button at your station immediately." She paused, ensuring that I fully grasped each rule. Fiona continued, "Sometimes you'll receive a unique bag request. When that happens, press the black button and follow the special protocol without delay." Her voice was steady as she listed the remaining instructions. No assistance for carrying items outside, and if any customer becomes overly insistent or threatening, follow the guidelines precisely. After the briefing, I was ushered to a register and paired with a quiet young man named Ivan, who had been a bagger for some time. Ivan greeted me with a curt nod and warned me not to get too involved with the work, hinting at previous incidents with another employee. "Don't ask about what happened to Jasper," he muttered. I simply nodded, determined to focus on the job. The night's first customer arrived quickly. Ivan began scanning the items, and I reached for a stack of bags. I asked in a polite tone, "What kind of bag would you prefer?" An elderly woman snapped back, "Paper," and then departed without a word. As I continued bagging her groceries, mostly produce, meat, and dairy, I noticed an assortment of unusual items, a set of knives and boxes that suggested ammunition. Recalling Fiona's instructions, I kept my questions to myself. Throughout the evening, increasingly bizarre orders came through the line. One customer purchased several rolls of cable ties and multiple bottles of a high-grade sedative, all tucked in with assorted sweets. Another shopper loaded up on various arms, extra ammunition, and even several oversized fruits. I began wondering if these purchases were merely odd or something far more disturbing. All the while, the cryptic "Alert Dusk" message repeated over the radio. At one point, a kindly older lady named Marjorie approached my station. She engaged me in gentle conversation and asked if I could help carry her bags. Her basket contained everyday items: eggs, butter, flour, and spices, but then she added several containers of strong chemicals. I hesitated and politely declined, citing store policy. Marjorie frowned and muttered something about missed chances before moving on. Ivan gave me a brief elbow nudge, warning me to avoid drawing any undue attention or prying into colleagues' past misfortunes. After a long stretch of uneasy bagging, the PA system suddenly blared that it was now 4 a.m. and the store was closing. Customers were instructed to finish their purchases and exit, and any remaining items had to be taken inside. Uniformed security, who resembled a paramilitary squad more than ordinary guards, started escorting late shoppers out. I joined the others in leaving, and as I stepped outside, Ivan joked quietly about overtime, though his tone was resigned. I ended up working at Dusk's bargain mart for several weeks, enduring unsettling conversations and witnessing orders that defied explanation. The alert Dusk code was mentioned more than once, and Ivan warned me repeatedly to steer clear of those special requests. Even though the extra income allowed me to save rapidly, each shift left me increasingly disturbed. I kept my head down, focused on the goal of paying for Elena's treatment. Then, one fateful night around 11 p.m., the atmosphere shifted dramatically. Several supervisors were seen wandering the aisles with an air of tension. Ivan mentioned that the owner, Mr. Umbral, was expected to visit soon. I was curious, so when a large, bald man with horn-rimmed glasses arrived at our register, I listened intently. His jovial expression, however, felt forced and unsettling. He attempted casual conversation, but I sensed something amiss. When I asked the routine question, "Which bag would you like?" he teased. "Show me yours and I'll show you mine," before erupting into a laugh that unsettled me further. I replied simply, "Plastic, please," sticking to the script. He then urged me to help him unload his items into his car, but I promptly reminded him that our policy forbade any employee from leaving the store with a customer. Undeterred, the man pressed on, arguing that I was being uncooperative and even insinuating that I might be rewarded more if I did. My refusal only escalated his tone as he bellowed threats. Heart in turmoil, yet following protocol, I discreetly pressed the yellow button. Almost immediately, a tall security officer clad in heavy protective gear intervened, restraining the unruly customer as he ranted. The intruder claimed he was well known to Mr. Umbral and that my defiance would soon cost me dearly. Before I could react, the officer subdued him and, after a brief struggle, escorted him aside. Leon returned shortly after, apologizing for the disturbance and assuring us that safety was paramount in these perilous times. "We do not tolerate any deviation from our procedures," he said as he walked away. A few days later, another peculiar customer entered, a sharply dressed gentleman in a neat suit and hat, who introduced himself as Horace from a nearby tailor's shop, approached the register. His basket contained items that ranged from fine sewing thread and thimbles to a hacksaw, a cast, and several boxes of nails and rivets, a baffling mix that didn't seem to belong together. When I inquired about his bag preference, he replied, "For these small items, paper is fine. But I need a special bag for the rest. A heavy-duty bag, the larger kind." I paused, suddenly realizing that his request was out of the ordinary. Remembering Fiona's instructions about special bag orders, I immediately pressed the black button. The register's alert sounded, and staff members moved quickly in the background. Horace's expression shifted from confidence to uncertainty as Leon and a few others appeared to clarify his order. Leon greeted Horace politely but tersely, then mentioned that they had just processed a previous employee and suggested that perhaps Horace's order was meant as a substitute. I felt a knot form in my stomach as Leon led us down a narrow hallway toward a door marked basement. With each step, my mind raced with questions about what lay beyond. When we descended, the area was dim and uncomfortably cold. I assumed it might be a storage room, but when the light switched on, I was met with a sight that made my stomach churn. Rows upon rows of heavy-duty bags were arranged on shelves, and many contained lifeless forms in various stages of decay. I struggled to comprehend what I was seeing. This was not a normal storage room, but a grim repository of human remains. Horace inspected one bag with a clinical detachment, noting its size and condition as though evaluating merchandise. "This one is robust," he commented, "despite some imperfections." Leon nodded and said, "Then it's settled. We'll use him. My mind reeled at the cold discussion, and I could only stand there, trembling and silent. After that surreal moment, Horace pressed a business card into my hand. "You have potential," he said, "and we could use someone with your resolve at our establishment. Dusk's Bargain Mart operates under strict discipline, but we are flexible in our own way." With that, he departed with his purchase, leaving me with a heavy sense of foreboding. Later, as I was escorted back upstairs, an older man with piercing, unwavering eyes introduced himself as the new shift supervisor. His voice was firm yet oddly comforting as he said, "I know this place unsettles you, but what you witnessed is part of our daily reality. We deal in matters that most people would rather avoid. This is our business, and it comes in many forms." He then pointed out the street outside. "When you return home to 4th Avenue, notice the great oak at the end. It blooms beautifully. Take Elena to see it while it's in season." He squeezed my shoulder in a gesture that was both supportive and cautionary. I worked there almost a full month, and though I saved enough for Elena's treatment, each shift left me more disturbed. I eventually decided I couldn't remain in that environment, no matter how much the money helped. I planned to quit as soon as my final paycheck cleared, vowing never to return to that unnerving place. Before I left, I discovered the hidden meaning behind the store's name. A closer look at the foreign inscription beneath Dusk's Bargain Mart revealed that the term used was often associated with finality, a grim synonym for death. The realization was a bitter twist on all I had experienced. I departed that night with mixed feelings of relief and sorrow, determined to find a safer way to provide for Elena. I have now learned that no matter the monetary gain, nothing is worth the constant fear and danger that lurks within those walls. My family's safety must always come first, and I knew I could not let Dusk's Bargain Mart, or the man who controlled it, dictate our future. Even though the extra income had enabled me to afford Elena's treatment, the memories of what I witnessed would forever haunt me. I left the store that final night without a backward glance, choosing instead to search for a path that would not force me to compromise our well-being. The lessons I learned in that dark establishment were indelible, a reminder that sometimes the cost of survival is far higher than money can ever repay. In the quiet after my departure, I resolved to rebuild a life of safety and dignity for Elena and me, no matter how hard the journey might be.